Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Pekudei. This is the last Sedra of the Book of Shemos, and as we say at the completion of every one of the 5 books of the Torah, we say the phrase chazak, chazak, venischazeik. Be strong, and let us strengthen ourselves. And I think that we dedicate this learning to the speedy and safe rescue of all of the hostages in Gaza and the success and the safety of all of the soldiers in the IDF. And we are really tuning in to this ability to lift ourselves with the truth of the Torah and to strengthen ourselves with the words of the Torah, with the words of our prayers, that we should merit to see the answering of our heartfelt requests for both the safety and security of all of the hostages and also the soldiers. And when we look at this Sedra of Pekudei, and the word Pekudei is actually one of the many untranslatable words of Lashon HaKodesh, of the language of the Torah, of the Hebrew, of the Holy Tongue, literally. And the way it is translated in this instance is as accounting. And it's fascinating to look at the bookends of this week's Sedra, and we have a unique opportunity to really focus on it, as this year we are reading it by itself. Many years, 7 out of every 19 years, we read it as by itself, because we have an extra month, and the rest of the time we read it together with the previous Sedra of Vayakhel. So reading it by itself really gives us this opportunity to focus on it. And when we think about the words Pekudei and we look at the opening psukim of the Sedra, it really seems like an account list that could actually perhaps be an appendix at the back of the Torah. Why do the precious words of the Torah have to give us this balance sheet, as it were? And it starts off, Ele Pekudei HaMishkan. These are the accounts of the Mishkan. Mishkan HaEdus, the Mishkan we translate as tabernacle of testimony, Asher Pukad Alpi Moshe, which were counted according to the instructions of Moshe, Avodas HaLeviim, serviced by the Leviim, Biyad Itamar, under the direction of Itamar ben Aaron HaKohen, the son of Aaron the priest. And we are then given the materials in chapter 38, verses 22 through to the end of chapter 38. So we have 1.5 chapters dedicated to the exact corresponding amount of donations that were received, how these donations were used. Really, we have the first, the transparency of the first fundraiser, the collection for the Mishkan that we read about in the Sedra of Truma. And here we have exactly how that money was spent. And as always, we see how the Torah, the Holy Torah, is above all time, because on the one hand, I question, why do the words of the Torah have to give us, have to sound like a balance sheet? But on the other hand, the Torah is teaching us a very important lesson, and that is of the need for absolute transparency especially when we are dealing with charitable donations, charitable funds. And also we see that this was carried out at the behest of Moshe Rabbeinu, our absolute leader, and there are no special exceptions for anyone. It's not going to be a case of Moshe Rabbeinu was in charge of it and we don't question him because he is our beloved leader, but he is the one who is saying this needs to be done. We need to know, all of the people need to know that the donations, how much was received and how much was used, and make sure that there is a complete tally of both of those figures, that there should be no room for suspicion that anything was misappropriated. So that is the beginning, which seems quite prosaic, and certainly nothing very inspiring necessarily in terms of reading the detail of exactly what was collected and exactly how it was spent. And in complete contrast, we have the conclusion of the Sedra that that tells us how the Mishkan was actually erected and, as it were, switched on. And the very, very rousing words at the end that we read in chapter 40, verses 34 to 38. Vayachas ha'anon es ohel moed, and the cloud covered the tent of meeting, Kavod Hashem mole es hamishkan, and the glory of God filled the tabernacle. And this really is the culmination of all of this hard work and the beautiful craftsmanship that had been in process in the desert by people who had been slaves, and they had put their all into making this beautiful home for Hashem in the world. V'lo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed, and Moshe could not come to the tent of meeting, ki shochan alav ha'anon, because the cloud rested upon it. Shochan olav on the cloud rested upon it. Uchavod Hashem mole es hamishkan, and the glory of Hashem filled the Mishkan. And here again, this magnificent description of the truth of Hashem, as it were, coming into his new home. It's the first the housewarming of Hashem for the home that the Bnei Yisrael have constructed. Admittedly, the whole universe plus is Hashem's home, but this was done with the efforts and the talents and the raw materials that the Bnei Yisrael collectively and individually dedicated for this purpose. And this was the moment of Hashem coming into that special place. And when the cloud rose from above the Mishkan, Yisu Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel would journey, b'chol ma'asehem, in all their journeys, v'im lo ye'oleh ha'anan, and if the cloud did not rise, v'lo yisu ad hayom ha'laso, and they would not journey until the day that it rose. Ki anan Hashem al hamishkan yomam, because the cloud of Hashem is over the Mishkan during the day, v'eish tiyeh laila, and fire on it at night, le'enei chol beis Yisrael b'chol ma'asehem, in full sight of all of the house of Israel in all of their encampments, in all of their journeys. And I think that if we can actually see and make a connection between the beginning of the Sedra, even though it seems million miles away in terms of just this list of accounts, and then at the end, this magnificent description of the Hashem's presence coming into the Mishkan in this beautiful way. And this is an idea that I read in the book Frameworks by Rav Mattis Weinberg. And what the idea is that instead of just being something that is unconnected to spirituality, when we have accounting going on, and I'm talking about the sums of money that are involved, this is something that is actually an integral part of spirituality. And we can see it. There's very interesting, there's a Gemara in Shabbos that tells of 6 questions that a person is asked when, after 120 years, when they pass away and they are questioned by the heavenly court, by the Beis Din Shel Mala. They are asked 6 questions. And the first of these 6 is, did you conduct your business affairs be'emunah? And the word emunah is usually translated as faith. And perhaps because we're used to the concept of faith from other cultures and other dictionaries, where faith seems to imply some kind of irrational belief. But that is actually not the way the Torah uses the word emunah. And this word emunah is actually defined rather as complete accountability and transparency in our business dealings. And this is something that we are seeing when at the beginning, Moshe Rabbeinu is actually the one who requests that this accounting is made, because it is such an important part of the spirituality of our daily affairs, of our daily life. And on the one hand, we have the spirituality of Hashem's presence filling the Mishkan, which is a vision, and which is a level that seems to be on a much higher level than our physical level. But in common with so much of Jewish thought and practice, we are actually focused on bringing the spiritual inspiration into our everyday activities, into transparency, into integrity. And it is also very interesting that this word emunah, which is translated as integrity in business dealings, is also connected to the word omen, the same root letters of aleph, mem, nun, and that means a craftsman. And the craftspeople were the people who made the beautiful furnishings and the outside structure and the priestly garments. They were the ones who constructed this incredible work of art and divine service, and made it into a site to inspire people, a physical, tangible product of their talents, but more than that, of their desire to carry out a work dedicated to Hashem's presence. And we can actually read from the Ramban, chapter 35, section 21, when it talks about every man whose heart raised him. This was a stipulation for the craftspeople involved in the construction of the Mishkan and everything that went along with it. The heart raised him, these words of Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, is what empowered the craft. None of these people were experienced or trained professionally. Don't forget, they were erstwhile slaves in Egypt. You can't exactly have professional art schools while you're doing backbreaking labor for the Egyptian taskmasters. He would discover an intuitive and natural flow within himself, and audaciously upraise his heart within God to come before Moshe and announce, I will achieve it flawlessly. So these omanim, this omanut, this art in practice and in progress, was born of the intense desire to be part of Hashem's project, part of the project of constructing a home for Hashem. And in this way, we can actually link up the beginning, the opening words of the Sedra, of the emunah, of accounting for every last shekel, half shekel that was collected and how it was put to use, and the emunah of the omanim, and the faith, the integrity of the craftspeople who lacked in their professional opportunities, their professional expertise, but they more than compensated for that in their intense desire to create their most beautiful product for Hashem's home. And I think that these are values. This is something to really lift us up. And as we go from the last words of Pekudei into chazak, chazak, venischazeik, we have to know that the eternal words, messages, and values of the Torah, they are the real energy that we tap into. They are the real source of our strength. And all the extraneous noise that we hear around us, the misinformation, the lies, and the accusations that we are dealing with as Jewish people, as the people living in the land of Israel, and sometimes we can get wobbly just from the sheer amount and viciousness of what we are hearing and experiencing. But when we are looking at this Sedra, that we are ending off the book of Shemos, which is the book that tells of our beginning, our embryonic nation from the time that we were enslaved in Egypt, through coming out of Egypt, the Tzias Mitzrayim, receiving the Torah, and we are part of this eternal nation, part of this eternal message, and we are representing the values of truth, and we can take courage and strength and comfort in the reality of Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker. And we've seen this over the millennia, that Netzach Yisrael Lo Yishaker, the eternity of Israel, is not a falsehood, it's an absolute truth. And we are all testament to that. And please God, we should merit to see the building of the home of Hashem that will be the rebuilding, and we will have our prayers will be answered in the immediate and in the long term, and we will go forward to bring the light of the Torah, the light of truth, into the world, and create a beautiful Mishkan, each of us in our own way, as we see in this week's Sedra. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom and chazak, chazak, venischazeik. Thank you for listening.